for construction. There was also impact on cooling loads, which was ranked high, and the embodied energy and carbon emissions of building materials. So this is a perspective as to what the experts really say that you need to ask or you need to consider while making the correct choice in terms of selecting a building material. But just to also give you an understanding of what the consumers think, there is another perception survey that we did part of the Marship study, wherein we'd surveyed about 750 households, and their perception was no different. Considering that they understood what sort of a material was given to them, they had a fair understanding in terms of what were the materials that were used in the houses that they were staying in. And if you could see from the graph, it was very evident that the satisfaction levels were quite low, and the reasons for the unsatisfactory experiences were that they were not able to hammer a nail in the wall, and that the plaster or the finish used to chip off in case they did so. And considering a case of affordable housing in the country, which the government is pushing largely, I think these are a couple of major considerations that people who are actually residing in these houses face as a major concern. So, talking about the demand side, or to enhance, the how to actually enable or mainstream the use of sustainable building materials in the industry, there is a need that we engage the consumers, and there is more inclusive decision making that really happens in the process now. So usually what happens is that the consumers do not have a say in the choice of building materials or in the designing or when the process is initiated. And that's essentially where the gap is. And I think we really need to look at how is that we can minimize that gap and build for the consumers that we're actually designing for. So a part of the directory that we are building, there is another aspect to it, which is the building material selection tool that would help the users to make those informed decisions. Talking about making informed decisions, it is important that to make the correct choices, there is information available in the public domain. And considering that a large part of information that we go out and seek for is usually fragmented, I won't say it is completely absent, because there are so many studies that in the industry are that the industry is doing at the moment, which may be related to the embodied energy or related to the operational performance of a building. So considering what the tool essentially focuses on is that you can select it's a directory which has about 18 different or 16 different categories of building materials that we've classified the market into. You could search by various states that you would want to procure it from or utilize it in, and the application that essentially that you're looking for. You could also filter by different KPIs that we've essentially identified for each of the building materials, and you would be given an array of options on the basis of which you could make those comparisons between the building materials and make informed choices. So what really a user is going to benefit out of it is they would get access to the manufacturer details, because to source the material you need to know where it is coming from. There would be good amount of information which would be available in the public domain. So there are certain key performance indicators that we've identified for each of these building materials that the user can get access to credible data. Then a curated list of locally available products. There is also a climate specific decision support system which would be based out of the information and the simulation results that would be done in the back end of the tool, and the information would be provided. It would facilitate quick comparison between the materials that you select to pick the one which would be most appropriate for you. It would also help you pick an economically viable option, facilitate green procurement, and ultimately the objective which we're planning to meet is to build thermally comfortable and energy efficient houses in the future or buildings in the future. So quickly to take a cue from what are the key performance related parameters that we've been looking at, or what essentially a designer needs to look at, is to have a criteria, and to have a criteria which kind of acts as a level playing field for all the building materials on which they are being assessed, to evaluate the operational performance and eventually come up with benchmarks. So right now, as the markets are highly organized and we do not know where the sustainable building materials can be procured from, taking an example of bricks and blocks, these are the certain KPIs that have been listed. 1 to 6 being the one which really impact the energy performance, and the other being the physical attributes of a building material. This is specific to bricks and blocks as an example, but it would vary for different products such as the insulation or glazing, etc., which we've also identified. Considering the energy simulation for each of these categories, it would help us to identify energy efficient building materials for our constructions, which can then be utilized. Quickly talking about, so where do we get this information from? The initial part was about asking the correct or the right question. The second is about, now once you've identified what your key performance indicators would be, how would you really assess it? So what could essentially be done is there are already existing standards in place that you can get access to, and these essentially help us to inform what the values of different parameters could be. This would also ensure compliance and verification in the future, so that whatever information is displayed in the public domain is credible and is valid and can be utilized without any inhibitions. I would also like to highlight that considering that a large part of information is going to be disclosed by the manufacturers, we need to also look at that as per the testing standards, there have to be, or there is a need for labs that basically provide you this information. As of now, as part of the studies and analysis that we've done, we found that there is limited infrastructure, availability of infrastructure when it comes to testing of optical as well as thermal properties. Although there are large part of building materials, or there is a diverse range of building materials that we want to test, and we want that information to go out in the public domain, the labs which are available there, which are existing in the country today, are very limited, that you can actually count on your fingers. One such initiative that we've taken with the Mahindra is the Mahindra Dairy Center of Excellence. It is this lab wherein we are testing the thermal properties of building materials. We are also going to be soon testing the optical properties of building materials, and this is an NABL accredited lab which complies with ISO IEC 17025:2017. This could help the manufacturers get their materials tested so that the information can be made available in the public domain. Looking at the policy side interventions, we understand that there is a push that is, while there is a top-down approach and the bottoms-down approach that sort of needs to go hand in hand if you want initiatives of this sort to scale up and see the light of the day. So it is important that we look at extracting the raw materials responsibly and sustainably. There are several policies such as the sand mining, which the government has essentially come up with, and the ultimate intent would be that the manufacture of these products that happen, they start relying less on the virgin materials to an extent possible, and utilize waste materials such as the fly ash, or possibly utilize the construction and demolition waste. There are also fly ash utilization policies which the government has essentially pushed, and because of that, AAC blocks in the country of fly ash bricks have actually been implemented very, very successfully, and people know about it. Also, there are rating systems, voluntary rating systems in the country, which have enabled the use of these sustainable building materials. And they also limit as to how much kilometers you really need to, within a range, how you need to source your building material from. There is also a need to look at how the construction waste which is generated on site is not dumped at the landfills, and it is either utilized on the construction site itself, or it is sent out in a way back to the back to the chain, wherein this entire loop is closed, and the materials, and we can basically not dump the materials which can be utilized and utilized more effectively. So there is a need to strengthen the implementation frameworks around it. Also, talking about the construction and demolition waste, we have a ready reckoner which the BMTPC has come up with. It clearly lists out what measures, what the responsibilities of various stakeholders need to be. Taking a cue from that, I would quickly like to highlight, as part of the construction and demolition waste, what are the various aspects that could be taken into consideration to strengthen it and strengthen the implementation of the existing policies. There is a possibility of setting up decentralized processing facilities for smaller projects. As designers and as architects or as developers, we also need to start building in the internal capacities. There is a need for identification of markets before we start segregating the waste out. So we need to know that, okay, if we start segregating timber versus rubber versus cement, what are the markets and where it can essentially be utilized, and where the second cycle, so as to say, of the building material that can then begin. There is also a need to levy a waste fee that BMTPC has as well now put in place, but essentially what could be looked at is coming up with more robust implementation measures. Also, to see that certain pilots of could be implemented in certain project sites, which could then be scaled up as best practices for the country to see and implement in various parts of the country. There are also standards by BIS which are already in place, and we need to bring in performance-related standards in the existing standards, which could then scale up the implementation. There is also a need for development of measurement, verification, and reporting frameworks to ease the implementation, to bring in circularity in the supply chain and in the building materials market and industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megha and Kiran, for that insightful presentation to get the panel to start discussing. And now I would like to invite the panel to, based on the presentations made by these young colleagues, we would like to take forward the discussion. And the discussion is essentially, broken up into three areas: the building material market, so as to say, the markets and certification, and then of course the circular economy. And I'm going to be asking you your perspective, your thoughts on each of these as we move along. So first, if I may invite Dr. Sailesh Agarwal to provide his perspectives as to how does he see the building material market shifting away from the carbon-intensive practices and products. Are there any promising technologies which can provide a sustainable alternative? As we, when we are discussing this very relevant and important subject, what are your views on this, Dr. Sailesh Agarwal?
Okay. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes. Yes, sir. You are. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Sanjay ji, and good evening to all the participants for this very apt topic, as Sanjay ji has already explained. And I'm so delighted that two youngsters there, they have explained so beautifully about sustainability, sustainable building materials. And, I was thinking, what should I add to it? So I just immediately, I got a acronym. I would say, Sanjay ji, that we need to have safer building materials. SAFER is the acronym. SAFER is the acronym, and S stands for sustainable. Sustainable means resource efficient, climate responsive, environment responsible. A means affordable. It has to be cost effective, and it should help faster construction. Is functional. When we talk about new materials or new technologies, sometimes functionality is questioned. So F means better thermal, acoustics, water tightness, and fire performance. E is economical. I think Megha covered that. We need to have economical materials. So what we are saying is, let's go for life cycle cost approach. So low life cycle cost and better quality. And last but not the least, R stands for resilient building material, which is disaster resistant and structurally superior material. Okay, now we have been talking about sustainability or in sustainable building materials. All of you know, if we want to make informed choices, sustainability is already an important decision factor already. But whatever we may say, we are only at the very beginning of an increasingly rapid development. Yeah. And we have been talking about greenhouse gas emission, and you did talk about reducing carbon footprint. Now we have to think beyond carbon abatement discussions. Physical climate risks are already growing, and they require immediate response. And just to after this post-COVID thing, already manufacturers, companies, they will need to consider the environmental impact when sourcing materials. I think Kiran and Megha covered this, but we need to reconsider the environmental impact when we are thinking of sourcing materials. Manufacturing will also become very sustainable because now use of electric machinery and things like that, so that even manufacturing becomes sustainable. And supply chain will also be optimized for sustainability as well as resilience. In addition, another important thing after this COVID thing, working environment will need to radically change from hostile to non-hostile, making construction safer. Now, water consumption, dust, air pollution, noise, and waste are also going to be critical factors. So that was the answer to the first question raised by you, Sanjay ji. And if you talk about promising technologies, there are umpteen of them. Like, I would like to tell you, number one, like we are talking about geopolymer concrete now. Normally, all of you know that concrete is normally is nothing but cement, sand, and water. Now we are trying to produce concrete without cement, so it is called geopolymer concrete. So this is one of the things which will be the game changer. Already, several experiments have been done in India. And the technology is ripe, and I think that may change the future. Another important aspect is lighter material. Now people are talking about lighter materials, so lightweight materials are also going to be the in thing in times to come. And I think you will be touching circular economy. So waste, we can use waste as a resource. Already C&D waste, fly ash, and so many blast furnace slag, and a whole lot of agriculture, industrial waste, inorganic, organic, they can be suitably converted into building materials, and they can be used very efficiently as alternate. Another thing I want to touch very briefly, if I'm encroaching your time, Sanjay ji, what has been said by Prime Minister that Atmanirbhar Bharat, and if we want to have Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have to be vocal for local, and already. Yes. Already organizations like BMTPC, Central Building Research Institute, and even you, Sanjay ji, we have beautiful technologies available all around India. Local technologies based on local materials, based on local skills, like bamboo you talk about stone masonry. All these technologies are available. What we require is we need to marry those local technologies with the kind of knowledge we have now. The kind of work presented by Kiran and Megha, if that knowledge is dovetailed with the local skills and local material, we will have sustainability, overall sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shailesh ji. You provided such fantastic insights into the future of work and how BMTPC is already doing all of this. But we have not been able to put a face to all this good work that you have been doing. I wanted to be on so that for the benefit of our participants, they should know look at the, the person that we are talking to. Shailesh, can I please request you on your video?
I'm not that impressive.
No, please. Thank you very much. So that was Dr. Shailesh, and we will, of course, continue to have him with us and as we move along. And really, those were very, very insightful remarks that you provided. And a lot of it, yes, we understand, and we look forward to learning more and also continuing to be engaged with BMTPC, being such a responsible organization, especially in the area that we are discussing today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I am now going to invite my colleague Saurabh. And Saurabh, you are putting together the frameworks of policy. Like we've already have the ECBC Energy Conservation Building Code, and now you're coming with the residential code, the Econivas Samhita, and obviously, when we are talking of pan-India implementation, and I think the biggest challenge that we are going to see is how do we go about making sure that these energy efficient buildings also use sustainable building materials, and whether the market is there. What do you think, is the market ready for kind of acceding to the policy interventions that are being brought out by the government? Saurabh, if you could please provide your thoughts on this.
Thank you, sir.
And I would request, Saurabh, you also please switch on your video. Yeah.
It's on already.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Whether market is ready, that's actually a challenging question, whether market is ready or not. But there are few challenges in implementation first. So I will say there are three challenges. First is awareness, that I'll say awareness integrated with commitment of the people. Two is the building material, and three is cost. So looking at awareness and commitment from the people, from the government side, we are working on a, I'll say, war footage basis, that we already doing almost 6 to 8 workshops in every state on ECBC implementation, and that is only for the commercial building I'm talking about. And similarly, we are doing for the residential building. So you can imagine that in a year's time, there will be like more than 5,000 to 8,000 people trained on ECBC technically, as well as on the compliance aspect as well. And these people will not only be architect, but also government officials. Also, there are other kind of people, developers, and everybody will be involved in these trainings. So hopefully by that, commitment also will come, and they will understand what is energy conservation for the buildings perspective. So for the commercial and as well as the residential. Now, I will come in the last for the building material, but first for the cost implications. Cost implication is also very, very problematic, because people always believe that building energy efficient buildings will cost more. But
yes.
Now this has a direct correlation with the building material availability. And if we select right type of building material and we design building at the right time, then probably cost will not be as high as what we are expecting. It will be some, I'd say, -2% to +2%. Sometimes it is lesser than the existing building cost, which is the conventional building cost. So sometimes it is lesser than that even, or higher, +2%. But if we are not designing at the right time, and if we are not procuring material from the right place, then that cost may go up to 4% as well. So then this shows that building material availability is one of the major concerns. As Mr. Shailesh said, that Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have to go for that. So how we can have a sustainable building material which is available right at where you are using it. So
locally,
if you are developing any flat or any house or any building in Madhya Pradesh, then whether that material is available in Madhya Pradesh, in the near vicinity of that area. So that way it will be useful. So, and that way also we will go for localization and localization will support. So two things we are doing. One, which we are already doing with the support of GIZ and with working with Terry on building materials directory. This will be a portal which will be available across the country, and you can select material whether that is available in your particular state or not, or in your particular area or not, so that you can reduce your transportation cost, you can reduce your overhead cost, and material is available in that area. Now, in future, we can even link whether those material are indigenous or imported. So that tag also can come on the portal, and person can choose among that. But this will not only help in identification, but also calculation that whether this will make our case economical or not. So there is economic sense or not. So all the cost permutations, how much saving you will get with that material, and how much cost implications are there, you can calculate and you can have your cost benefit analysis with that. Second thing, which we are in discussion after this COVID crisis initiated, is how we can make this glass industry as uh, instead of procuring from outside world, making that glass in India itself. So complete infrastructure in India. So we are in discussions for that. Hopefully we will have some kind of solution. If you have any solutions, you can share with that. And we want that India is having our own energy efficient glasses which are available at low cost. So that is the objective statement for this new program which we are right now in thinking process.
Great, Saurabh. As usual, as always, this is really great to see the work that is being done by BE. And of course, the challenge, of course, is that, when we have to address it on a pan-India basis, naturally, it takes a little bit of time, and, the patience sometimes runs out, that we need to do quickly. Things should have been done as of yesterday, but then the ground reality is that we are a diverse country with all kinds of challenges, and we need to overcome them. But I'm very glad to hear about the steps that you all are taking to kind of scale it up to the desired levels. And when Saurabh, you've said that, I also know that you have the able assistance from the German Development Agency, and I would like to bring in Vikas Kanchan at this stage to kind of ask him to give his perspective as to how they have been supporting, the BE in this initiative. Also bring in the global practices, the global best practices given the German experience, and how are you helping the adoption of sustainable building materials and practices in the endeavor or the policies that the BE is making. And then if like we are working together on the tools and directories, what else do you think would us to take this forward? So Vikas, if you would please provide your perspective to this.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks, Saurabh, and thanks, Shailesh. Your nice words and technical words helped the sector a lot. If you see, sir, what we are doing at present, this is a sector where everybody knows about the building. We are staying in a residential building, and everybody knows about the building. And when we talk about a building, everybody is saying, okay, if you go for an energy efficient home, you need to change your bulb, you need to change your ACs, you need to change your fridge. Nobody is talking about the materials, right? So in this case, that is the reason we wanted to bring in something which people are not aware of, and what is the way that to bring this BMDI. This is what nomenclature that you have given, the Building Material Directory of India. It is certainly a big way, a big leap towards sustainable, energy efficient building homes, right, sir?
Vikas, why don't you switch on your video? Yeah.
I think I have a very low bandwidth. That is the reason why I'm not.
Okay. No problem. Yeah, no problem.
Probably I will speak and then.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah. Please carry on. Yeah.
So basically, apart from building directories and the support that the construction sector is needing for adopting sustainable building materials. We need an informed choice, and what we did in the building materials. We are not far behind than the developed nations in terms of availability of sustainable building materials. What we are lagging behind is the awareness. Saurav has also explained about it, and you are also explained about it, about the among the common man. Few other things that relate to low adaptations of sustainable buildings that are very much in common, and that is also explained by Saurav about the localized availability, and it is very much needed. Why, when we want to construct a house in any of the part of India, any climatic zones, we are not known to any of the building industries. One of my friend is constructing a house at Delhi, and initially he thought of taking the red bricks in place. When we visited his site, and then we recommended the AAC block, then he came to know about AAC block and the features involved into it, and what are the energy efficiency systems, and what are the savings that he wanted to have. So those things are in picture, and the one thing that was again shown in the presentation as well. He wanted to see whether the AC block is having a good strength or not. That means putting a nail into it, and that is what strength and quality lies. So those things are very much required in this type of zone. Awareness is a key issue. Key issue. Even the well-educated person is not knowing about the building materials at all. Whatever has been said by the contractor, by the mason, they will be taking those materials and building it in the systems. And ultimately, when he lands up in that building, this will stay for another 50 or 60 years. And they used to say that, okay, if we can change our CFL bulb to LED bulb, we are energy efficient. That is not true at all. So that is what it is. It is all lies. And then we need a simple and understandable policies, and that is where we are working with B.
Yeah.
One common man can understand the common language of rules and regulations. In that respect, he can easily adopt those rules and regulations and implement at their building level.
Yeah.
Another thing that is more prominent thing is standards. We are not having much more standards for the building materials in terms of energy efficiency. And that is what we are also trying to include many of things which are having international standards and international testing facilities. So for testing those standards, we need a lab, and the lab availability is very poor in terms of getting those things tested as per international standards. So all these things made it difficult to go ahead with the energy efficient building materials or sustainable building materials. So we need a good research and development systems where indigenous sustainable building materials are being developed through local raw materials. That is what we needed now. In Germany, what is happening now? They have come with the very optimum case of building design. They have included 250 mm insulations. Now what? Now what is the U value? So now they are moving towards the localized material, towards providing the local raw materials for manufacturing those products in terms of energy efficiencies and sustainable materials.
All right. Yeah.
So these are the other things. Apart from these, we are working like what you said about tools and everything. We are working with Mr. A.B. Lal, where we wanted to include the applicable designs of models that one can easily adopt those models. You don't have to go to the architects. They can fetch the drawings, the designs, the BIM file, and they can construct their house without the help of architects as well. That is what we are trying to move forward. Apart from it, we have Econivas tool where anyone can visit and see the simplicity of savings in terms of building materials and everything. That is what we are doing, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vikas, for that. And I'm sure that as we move along and as BE moves along, that support from the German side would continue to be provided in building up the capacities and the scale up that is required. The German Development Agency would continue to extend their support. Now, while all of this is being discussed, and all of this is, I think, the top-down approaches, as I may say, but it is very important to bring in the perspective of the developer. That what does the developer community feel about ensuring that the green footprint that everyone is so talking about, and there is so much of hoo-ha about green constructions happening. Then what is their view? I mean, is the building markets, the building material markets picked up? Have they been able to provide a supply chain for them to be able to deliver the sustainable buildings that we are all talking about? And who better than Amit Pal from the Mahindra Life Spaces to be brought in at this stage, to be giving his perspective as to how do you think this segment, how do you think it has impacted your businesses? Amit.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I would just like to repeat the same thing what Dr. Agarwal said and also other two panelists said. The awareness level is basically very low. A particular section of the builders and developers fraternity, they know about doing the green construction, or we can say sustainable development using green building material. And the local developers or an individual who is actually developing a house or a villa, they are not, they completely depend on the architects or the engineer who is actually building it for them. So they don't have much awareness about this kind of green construction material. So to share an example in Mahindra Life Spaces, what we do, we give more emphasis mainly on the design. We believe that the concept lies in the design. So while designing the building, we take care of the material which are going to be used in the construction should be all green construction material. So we also go up to the extent like finding out their embodied energy, the energy efficiency of those building material, and what is the recycle content of those building material. So these are the key elements we take care during the design stage of the building, which actually helps us during the implementation. As you know, when you start the construction, you cannot change the material, you cannot do the selection of the material. That has to be defined and designed, decided earlier. We take into extensive use of various pozzolanic material, like Dr. Agarwal said, fly ash and GGBS as a replacement, percentage replacement of the cement in producing concrete. This is how we are actually reducing the cost of concrete, and also the recycled steel. And we use AAC blocks and also CLC blocks, which is cellular lightweight concrete block. As you were asking me what was the patent about, and it was basically a cellular lightweight concrete block with the nanotechnology. That's what we have actually designed and developed. So these are the building material what we are using. And apart from this, and what I feel also we should do continuous the R&D work. And we are associated with TERI, as you know, as Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence, where we can actually get and explore all the knowledge and resources what TERI is having. We are testing our own building material from there and actually validating our projects. And this is how I think if builders and developers gets more information, more knowledge, or more information about this kind of building material, I think the usage will be more. And it is not going to be a challenge. And all those materials are now readily available in our country. Just we need to create more awareness among the people who are using those.
Thank you, Amit. And I mean, very wonderfully explained as to how Mahindra as a responsible developer is playing an important role in this. And of course, we really are very, very proud of our association in TERI with the Mahindra group for putting together the Mahindra TERI Center of Excellence and the work that we all are doing, I'm sure. And the way the developer has come forward to be validating all of the research information and the research activities on their side. So that, I mean, hats off to you all. And I'm sure that with other developers following your footsteps, we will be able to change this scene of buildings in the landscape of buildings in the country. But, all of the, I think, speakers, they all emphasized on one very important thing, and that is the cost economic, viability. How do we, I'm going to open this question to all of you and ask you to probably give your views, very, very short views on how do you think that you would be able to, bring about that change in the cost of sustainable building materials? What is it that probably BMTPC would do, or B, how would it as a policy bring in certain policies the German Development Agency, how would you help the markets to, work towards building down the costs? And then, of course, benefits, of course, will be drawn by the developer like Mahindra. But I would like to hear your perspectives on how do you address this.
Okay.
So, Dr. Shailesh, if I could ask you to come
Yeah,
first.
sure.
And with your face, sir.
Thank you. Ever since I joined BMTBC in 2008, I have been working with alternate building materials and new technologies. And ever since I joined, I'm facing this question of cost. Cost is dependent on several factors. Okay.
Yeah.
And first of all of us know it is about economies of scale. If you are
Yes.
bringing new material or if you're bringing a new technology, unless it is mainstream, it cannot be compared with your business as usual materials and approaches. Number one. Secondly, now there has been a very revolutionary change in our. You have worked with government in general finance rules. Now we have put a clause which is called life cycle cost estimation.
Yes.
If you're
Yes.
any project which is more than so many crores, you need to ascertain life cycle cost. So initially, the cost will come at par with the conventional materials and other technologies in vogue. But to start with, we have to compare life cycle cost. And when we talk about life cycle cost, I always say life cycle cost is nothing but it is sum of initial cost plus maintenance cost plus disposal cost. So initial cost may be slightly high, but in the long term, you will have a low life cycle cost. So this is one thing which can bring down the cost. Another thing, Sanjay ji, I was just going through. There is a report by McKinsey on new normal in construction after COVID. So another one thing I'm talking about cost. So they have written that this COVID-19 crisis will accelerate disruption and the shift to a next normal in the construction ecosystem. So now they have written beautifully that now client demands are also evolving regarding performance, total cost of ownership. It is called TCO, total cost of ownership, sustainability, smart buildings, energy and operational efficiency, flexibility and adaptability of structure will become higher priorities. So we need to see the performance. So the entire shift will take place from cost-based to performance-based design, performance-based materials, and things like that.
All right, thank you. And I would now invite Saurabh.
Hi. Okay. Cost. Actually, I have a bit of different perspective about cost. One is that cost always dependent on how much is the material available and what is the demand of that material. So taking this example from star rating program, if you look at cost of inverter type air conditioners, I think if we look at only 3 years back, inverter type air conditioner were costing around 60,000 rupees. Whereas same air conditioner is available now at 35,000 or not more than 40,000 rupees. So what happened over the years, and this is true for whether it's for color television, LED type color televisions or LED lights. So when you have demand for that kind of product, automatically your cost economics comes into things and your cost get reduced. So similarly for building material also, cost can be reduced when you have certain demands. For example, now AAC block, I think as Mr. Vikas Ranjan also said when he went for his friend's home, and they observed that cost of AAC block is at par with the red bricks. And maybe it is cheaper than red bricks because availability is more for AAC block. It is wider available now. So cost will automatically come down if we generate that demand. Now, to generate that demand, again, people will look into the cost implication, whether this makes economic sense or not.
Exactly.
So it's a vicious circle.
It's a vicious circle, yeah.
It's a vicious circle. So we have to find a way that how we can give some kind of a push or some kind of a what you say incentive mechanism so that it will cross that threshold, so that cost will come down. So we have
To jumpstart the market. So you just want to jumpstart the market so that
jump the
you
market.
move. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just it will come out of that threshold, and automatically your things will line up. So we have to find a way now. So that's why I normally say that from the cost impact, market forces should work, and automatically things will be in right place. So we have to give awareness, we have to generate demand by maybe more implementation of ECBC and Econivas or any energy efficient building. So automatically demand will generate it and cost will come down.
Okay, thank you. Vikas and Amit, I would want your perspectives also in this, and very quickly, because we have so many things to discuss,
Yeah.
and I've got a very interesting lineup for you. Yeah.
Only
Yeah.
one thing I have to say, sir, that we should. It is very good that we have to make the people aware about the building materials, and the demand will rise. At the same time, we have to work on SME sectors as well. You see, in Germany and in China. I went to China. They have those building materials which are being manufactured at the very low level, and the sectors are playing a big role into it. So we have to be vocal for our local, and Atmanirbhar Bharat is also one of the main thing. At the same time, sir, if we have to make aware about the energy efficient systems, we have to look into the government initiatives in terms of the housing schemes of housing for all, affordable housing, smart city networks. So there we have to push from the policy side to make this happen at that level, and then the awareness will come automatically to the public about the savings that these housing schemes are getting. So with this pull and push system, we will be able to generate the volume, and then the cost will come down automatically.
So it's basically aggregation of demand models that you are all basically talking about. Okay, Amit, would you agree as a developer on this? On that whether this will play a role in bringing down the prices of sustainable building material?
Yes, I completely agree with what other panelists said. Two things I want to emphasize on. Number one is the local manufacturing. The more we make it localized, the cost will reduce. And the second thing, what I would like to emphasize is use more recyclable content in those material. We will have to increase the recyclable content into those building materials so that the cost of the material goes down. And
Okay.
unfortunately, as a user, most of us do not look into the life cycle cost. We just look into what is the cost of the material. So that is also the awareness is very important part that we should look into the life cycle cost of the entire building.
Okay. So, Amit, I just stay on because I'm going to ask you this next question, which is very important, that we've seen it has done, the pandemic that we are currently going through. If you really are able to see an impact, largely, the largest impact that it has probably created in the construction industry, right? The real estate sector, both in terms of labor migration and in terms of deals and all of those things. And it's the biggest driver of the economy. We all know that construction is the biggest driver of the economy. Now, in light of the COVID-19, how do you see as a responsible developer to be kind of, bringing back these small and businesses who provided the value, the supply chain to you all? How do you and I would actually want a perspective on this from all the panelists, that what is there, how do they see this revival happening, and what is the ecosystem that you are, in your minds that you'll be able to put together? I mean, first.
Yeah.
I'll ask
See,
you.
as a developer, what we have changed our strategy now as a developer, looking into the C19 scenario. Those small or medium manufacturers or suppliers, now actually speaking, we are treating them as partners, and we are not treating them as suppliers or vendors for us. we also try to see that there should be a win-win situation. We support them in terms of assured orders. We have already started supporting them in terms of assured orders and a kind of a secured material advance. We told them, you manufacture for us, we will give you the secured advance. And also in large projects where we have huge land, there we are actually inviting them. We are telling them, you can set up a small manufacturing unit in my premises, and the
Okay.
transportation cost and all other your overhead cost will reduce. And this is how we are actually trying to help them and then create a win-win situation for both.
Okay. Oh, great. And I'm pleased with on the same. I would want a response from all the panelists on that, please.
Yeah, at the same time, sir, I think COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to go back to the position where we can develop many more things, and can have a real sustainable world, sir. Like what we have, the boycotting of Chinese products will have some opportunity. During this COVID situations, we have conducted 45 numbers of webinars, and that was attended by 5,000 professionals. So these things are there. These things are there, and they are trying to get those knowledge from outside. So these inputs again go will be there for the more demand push for the systems in future.
Okay. Saurabh?
COVID-19 gave us a very different perspective, and I was big fan of global economy, but this global economy made global pandemic as well, because how we are moving here and there, everything is stopped. And best thing is that our buildings is the safest place on the earth where we can secure ourselves from the corona. But at the same time, it give us the opportunity that how we can develop our local market and develop our local market for our betterment. So that way we have to look into, but at the same time we have to look into other aspects so that economy can be boosted, not only with the local aspect, but overall aspect as well for the country. So we have to look into different things that how we can develop, but it's not a very easy situation, I'll say. But,
yeah.
And we have to shift from the global to the local.
Yeah. And I've also been attending a number of webinars where either I've been attending or I've been speaking, and I have come across two very important words. One is survival, and then the revival. So these two are very, very important. And I think largely, I think the real estate sector can play a very good role in both these things, the survival and revival. If I may ask, Dr. Sailesh Agarwal to provide his inputs on this, please.
Okay. See, everyone knows that this post-COVID has changed the entire thing. But let me the government's perspective. Ever since this COVID pandemic struck India, we have been working, believe me, day and night to bring back our economy back to the rails. And on several occasions, Prime Minister of India, Honorable Prime Minister, has said that the commitment to go to 5 trillion economy by 2024 and $10 trillion economy by 2040 is a reality. We are going to achieve it. And let me tell you, projects which we started. Sanjay ji, we started lighthouse projects, and already work is already going on all these sites. So government is leaving no stone unturned to bring back economy, and I'm pretty sure that our sector, construction sector, will bounce back with new normals. Okay, and you also are, what is going to change? First thing is sustainability only. We need to talk about sustainable building materials. We need to talk about some other than cost, life cycle cost kind of thing. And the topic which is very dear to me is offsite production. Now, this is the time then buildings will be sold as a product. like we have Godrej building, like we have Philips building. So those kind of things are going to come into the market. There will be several new players in the market, like you see this Boeing industry. There are only two players now who are doing aeroplanes and all those kind of things. Similarly, there will be new entrants in the housing sector, which will change the entire scenario. Another thing is local, which you'll never forget, which will add to the sustainability. Okay, the moment we go for local, the entire scenario will change. Another thing, incentivization, people were talking about. Now, in India, I think every week we have 5,000, 6,000 startups taking place. And under this scheme of Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, recently they have changed the definition of MSME and all these things. I think there is incentivization in which the new entrants or the startups can come and they can give push to new building materials and things like that.
Okay, yeah, good. So, and I'm very glad that Dr. Shailesh ji, you have brought in the push, the push factor. Now, push and pull, as I think during this conversation, we also heard some of our panelists talk about the push and pull. And of course, push, as we all know, is the policy, and the pull is the market, the market products that kind of provide the pull. So one of the important, and I think Saurabh would be the best person to be.
Not able to hear you.
I think you got disconnected.
Yeah. Sanjay ji, we are not able to see you.
Yeah, there is some problem in his connection.
Megha, if you can just speak to him.
Yes, he's had a electricity failure. So probably meanwhile, sir, I think we could take in some questions.
Sure.
Okay. So this is the first question, which is directed, which is not really directed to any specific panelist. But this is by Mr. Senthil Kumar, and he's asking on the practicability of applying circular model in the construction industry. So if anyone of the panel members would like to take this one up.
Should I say?
Yes, sir. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. I'll just give the example of what we are doing. What we are doing at Mahindra Lifespaces. First is we produce lot of foundry sand. You know about the foundry sand. That foundry sand is produced in our manufacturing plant of vehicles. And what we do, we use those foundry sands for making concrete roads, stormwater drains, as well as paver blocks, all the non-structural elements. Apart from this also, we have a concept, which is basically our design philosophy, and our design concept is design out waste. We call it design out waste. Whatever waste is being generated at the site, these are actually been again recycled, and we reuse those construction waste, like broken blocks, waste gypsum, and broken tiles. Those are been again recycled and mixed with pozzolanic material like cement or fly ash, and we use non-structural concretes like roads, parking areas, stormwater drains, and paver blocks. So it is very much possible that we can actually look for circular economy, and we also feel that there should be a kind of a mandate in all the development control rules or DCRs that no construction waste should be taken out of the site premises, and 100% reutilization of the construction waste should be done at the same premises, and then only I think it will be possible. Some of the builders and developers are doing it voluntarily like us, but most of the developers or builders are actually sending those construction waste into the landfill. So there is a great opportunity that you can actually reduce the demand of original material by doing the recycling of the construction waste at site.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for you, Dr. Agarwal, which is by Ms. Hinazia. And she's asking if there is any roadmap for building up the supply chain.
What is the question? Building up the supply chain.
Yes, sir.
I didn't understand the question. What does she mean?
Building
Okay,
up of supply chain.
I'm back. I'm back. Sorry, I got disconnected because of the electricity failure, but I'm back now. Please carry on. I'm sorry to have disrupted this interesting conversation. But are we on the question and answer session, Megha, right now? I wanted a few more perspectives from the panelists on a couple of important elements before we really go into the question and answer. That is okay. So yeah.
We have only one question. Maybe we could finish up the panel discussion and we would take the question subsequently.
All right. So can I carry on with the panel discussions in that case?
Yes, sir. We can carry on with the discussion.
All right. Thank you. So I was talking about the push and pull, and I wanted to bring in two panelists to be answering this question. And when we're talking about material certification, building material certification, how important do you think is the building material certification? How would it really transform? That is number one. And if we want to go on that path, then do we have the testing infrastructure in the country which is adequately available to provide the confidence in moving ahead on this? And I would want Dr. Sailesh Agarwal and Saurabh Bedi to be giving their thoughts on this.
Okay.
First, Dr. Sailesh Agarwal. Yeah.
Okay. I think Saurabh, while answering your first question, he answered that, in India, certification is normally taken as a policing kind of thing. So that mindset we have to change. Certification is for the better of everyone. Through certification, we evolve the product or material or things like that. So, like BMTB is running performance appraisal certification scheme, and we have been running it quite successfully. So we do, we have an outreach program. Like we said, when this National Building Code was introduced, right as of today, when I'm talking to you, Sanjay Pant is doing in length and breadth of India. Everywhere is going and creating awareness about National Building Code, its pros and cons. So if we want to really take up certification seriously in India, we need to make people aware. We need to disseminate the information that how important certification is. And certification is not policing, but it is evolving the material or the product. So that is very important for certification. Secondly, I think you have done a noble effort, Sanjay, that of course, when we talk about certification, when we talk about laboratories available, we don't have a single place where all the tests can be conducted. And now the era has come when we will talk about performance-based design, performance-based material. So there is, shortage. We have some laboratories, but they may do some of the tests, and the entire thing cannot be done at one place. So you have to move from one place to another place, delaying the entire process. So we need to create center of excellence, and for that, government and organizations like you. There are certain agencies, who put in a lot of money for creating testing laboratories and things like that. But there is need to create center for excellence for testing sustainable building materials.
Yeah, and what do you think about it, sir? How would you go in this direction?
Pardon?
Saurabh?
Okay. Actually, your voice is not coming clear. So I thought you were asking something to him.
Okay.
I am in complete agreement with Dr. Sailesh Agarwal ji because certification is not policing. It is to support it for common people for better understanding of anything. Be it a star label, it is only for understanding of common people that whether this product is efficient or not. Be it a certification for energy building material, it will be just a document which says that, okay, this is authentic and this is tested as per these protocols. So you can.
So enhancing market confidence.
Yeah. Just to create market confidence, and it is just to compare apples with apples rather than apples with oranges, so that everything is tested on a same thing. Otherwise, what will happen? People will tell that my product is efficient, as per this standard, and other person will tell as per the other standard, and then you can't compare both of them. So, but at the same time, when we say that we have to compare with apples, we need to have significant number of labs, because as
Yes.
we have to test these products, it has to be tested as per standard protocol, and that standard protocol has to be maintained or managed by the labs. So whether those are tested according to those standards or procedures or not. So we need to have that infrastructure. As of now, I can't say whether we have that infrastructure or not, because we are doing mapping of these labs for building material. Maybe
Yeah.
in a month or so, we can say with a confidence whether we have enough of labs or not. But what I feel, my gut feeling says that we don't have. So we have to work together for the capacity building of these labs, to develop more and more labs, so that we have enough infrastructure for the certification process.
Sanjay,
Okay.
I
Okay.
just wanted
Yeah.
to add, I think Saurabh touched that. There is, when we talk about certification, there is need to, what he said, SOPs. We need to create a standard operating
Standard
protocol
operating
for
procedure.
testing. This is needed. Otherwise, what happens? Somebody comes to me with a material, and I do some kind of test. Somebody does some kind of test. We did try
Yeah.
this with the IIT Kanpur, and it is available on our website. But there is need to create SOPs. And once we have SOPs, we can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I would turn to Vikas Ranjan at this stage. And since GIZ is also working together with BE and with TERI towards putting this, I would want maybe you, not, I mean, we of course have been discussing this, but I would want you to share your insights as to, since building, material, a large amount of it is in the unorganized sector. How do you see taking this or overcoming this challenge, Vikas Ranjan?
Very true, sir. There are lots of challenges as we are also facing in making the directory as well. But I think the biggest challenge is to have those database in place for the unorganized sector. And I have been working in PAT as well, PAT Industries, where we wanted to develop those monitoring, reporting, and verification system. And it was really hello.
Yeah, we are there. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So it was
Yes,
really very
yes, please.
challenging time when we wanted to have a monitoring, verification, reporting systems. But right now, with the SME sectors where we have a very unorganized things, we need a database which is not available at any of the government ministries or any of the government institutions. So that is one thing. And the second thing, what Saurabh has touched upon about the lack of NABL accredited labs, and then the Indian standards for testings. Apart from it, we also need the recognition of the associations, manufacturers associations, and they are there, but they are not recognized at all. And it will be it is getting very difficult for us to get those inputs from the manufacturers about the KPIs, what we have worked and what specification that we needed from them. So all these things becoming a very challenging thing for getting this thing, getting the information from the manufacturer itself. Apart from it, we are trying to develop the label scheme for the building materials with B. Sort of might be knowing about it. So we will be going ahead with the policies in terms of labeling of building materials. So there we needed the first-hand information from these unorganized sectors, and there we have to map those sectors first before getting a real start in the labeling schemes as well.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
This certification or labeling program will actually help in shifting this informal sector to the formal one. So it will make that organized sector. If you look at air conditioning,
very true.
Industry was totally informal in 2005 or 6. You don't have major players, but now it is completely formal. Transformer industry is actually from the SME sector, and they are also now 100% organized under the labeling program. So this is going to support to create that area, that era.
Exactly. And also we need some type of automations in those industries as well, where we can where they can put some data, and we will be getting head self sitting remotely. That all things could be done if they are aware of what are the real profit and advantage of getting these certification systems in place.
Megha, I think Setsa again got disconnected. And if you can take those questions again, so that in the meantime, we can have those question answers.
Sir, I would take on the discussions from here. So,
Okay.
moving on to circular economy, this is a question which is directed to Dr. Shailesh Agrawal. That, so what do you think are the actions and initiatives taken up by BMTPC in this area?
In which area?
Construction and demolition waste.
The construction demolition waste is one aspect. We have been working, to achieve overall sustainability in the construction sector. And as you know, Megha, our ministry, my ministry, is running a most ambitious program called Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, and where we have sanctioned around, 10.5 million houses when I'm talking to you. And in that mission, I proudly say that we are running a technology submission. And the technology submission is all about bringing sustainability to the construction sector. And I think the gentleman asked a question that how practical is circular economy. In most of the projects, we insist that there has to be zero demolition and construction waste. There should be zero wastage. The kind of technology you are using need to be sustainable. You need to use your waste, waste water. You need to separate out, sewerage and septage, and a whole lot of other initiatives through technology submission. Also, BMTPC, we are operating a scheme called Performance Appraisal Certification scheme, through which we certify innovative building materials and products. And also, if you talk about our ministry, we have been constantly monitoring all the organizations under our ministry, like NBCC, CPWD, who are the biggest, construction agencies in India. If we talk about government projects, we are constantly monitoring the kind of materials they are using, how much waste they are utilizing, waste-based material they are utilizing, like fly ash-based materials or CND-based material. And all the organizations have standing instructions that there should not be any CND waste created at the site. It has to be used within the site. And the recent example is the government flats constructed by them in Nauroji Nagar. All the CND waste was converted into bricks, non-load bearing bricks. With the Israeli technology, they set up a plant there, and whatever waste they were getting, that was being segregated and being converted into building blocks. So these are a few initiatives. Apart from this, we are also working with organizations like BEE, Ministry of Renewable Resources, and trying to bring those policy interventions and trying to give those policy interventions to states
Dr. Agarwal,
Yeah.
Dr. Agarwal, if I want to add what you said, exactly the concept is this. If you can actually drive the concept of design out waste, we call it design out waste, or entire construction waste be reused into the site. So I think it will help if in the development control rules, if there is a kind of a mention or kind of a mandate with this, all construction sites will have to reuse the construction waste into the site itself. And I think this way we will be able to actually create more awareness, and as well as that will become almost a compulsion for builders and developers or local contractors, that they will reuse those construction waste into the site itself.
We are already practicing it, Amitji. We have recently sanctioned 6 lighthouse projects, and it is mandatory there to have zero waste. Whatever.
No. So Dr. Agarwal and Amit, if I may just jump in. Sorry again. I am seeming to be, jinxed. A lot of light disconnections, electricity failures happening in Gurgaon. So sorry again. But what I really want to bring in, and Dr. Suresh Agarwal, as you are saying that you are doing a number of projects where you are probably practicing the elements of circular economy. And what Amit was also saying is that how it needs to be made, I mean, as a rule book, so that people are not left with any choices. And we in the recent past discussed from along with Amit and his other people in Mahindra Life Spaces, that how we could probably help them to move towards a zero discharge, whether it is water, whether it is waste, all of this. I think they become zero discharge whatsoever. And that word Atmanirbhar, which is now being used very frequently, I think they become completely Atmanirbhar. So Amit and Sailesh Agarwalji, if you could probably give us very quickly, one minute, your comments on this aspect, please.
Like Sanjay ji, we have recently started lighthouse projects, and first time in those lighthouse projects, all the contractors, they got their project registered under GRIA. You might be having that question. All the 6 projects have got registered under GRIA, and under Pradhan Mantri, as you know, also we are promoting through technology submission, sustainable development, sustainable building materials. And believe me when I say we have a dashboard. Our ministry is keeping all the data related with CPWD, NVCC, and other organizations attached with ministry, the kind of materials they are using, how much sustainable materials they are using, how much waste is being produced, how much waste they are utilizing. So all the work is going on at all the levels. But as we know, in India, implementation is a bit tricky, enforcement is a bit tricky, but we are slowly moving towards that direction of sustainability, having zero discharge, having zero demolition waste, and making use of renewable resources. Those things are being talked about. And after this COVID thing, this is going to be a new norm, I tell you.
So I mean, but Amit, I mean, while I want you to answer this, but also give me your perspective, about the challenges on ground that you face as far as this is concerned. Amit, if you could please comment.
The challenge on the ground is mainly the knowledge. As I also said earlier, that the knowledge is limited. People do not know, like mainly the local builders and developers, they don't know how to reuse the construction waste. They will have to depend on the engineer or the architect to tell them. So in this case, if we can actually show them or demonstrate them, as Dr. Agarwal is telling, in those lighthouse projects, it is being demonstrated now how the construction waste can be recycled and reused. So for an example, I would like to tell in one of our projects what we are going to do now. We are going to set a small recycling facility with a vendor, very small one, which is like a segregating and a crushing machine. And we'll take all the used gypsums, waste, concrete, broken blocks, broken tiles, and everything we will be mixing into that, and then using some pozzolanic material like cement and fly ash, and then we will be making a non-structural concrete. And then non-structural concrete, we are going to use it completely for paper blocks, hard stands, parking areas, and concrete roads. And I mean, I'm 100% sure this will be a true example where you can see the entire construction waste will be reused into the same project. We don't need to take out for any landfill or anything.
Okay. And Saurabh, if I may ask you that, is there any endeavor in the future? I'm not saying that now, because we know currently what you all are doing, but in the future that you would like to include circularity in building codes as well?
Although I'm not a big fan of making things mandatory, and I actually wanted to ask one question here. When we are talking about using this material, and people were saying that we have to make it mandatory that you should use that material 100% from the site. How and the other side, you are saying that it makes economic sense, because when you are using that material, your cost of construction is coming down. Then why we need to make it mandatory? So only issue left out is that awareness, that how to use that material so that it makes economic sense. So
but Saurabh, I'm not asking you to make it mandatory. I'm saying that, are you wanting it to?
I'm coming to that. So if awareness is the issue, so we can actually work not in very far in future, but maybe in short term, also maybe in 6 months time, we can look into this aspect, that how we can develop awareness so that this material can be reused. But
Okay.
for the ECBC code is concerned, that we can look as a future thing, that whenever code is being revised, that time we can look into whether this can be part of the code or not.
Okay, okay. So, while I had many more questions, but in the interest of time, I think I should not probably delve on all of them. What I would want to also, it will be very unfair if we don't take questions which the participants and, people who are there. There are a number of questions, and I had asked Megha if she could collate and, put those questions across to the speakers. Megha, if you've done that exercise, can I have those questions and can you put them to the relevant speakers, please, to the panelists, please?
Yes, sir. Before that, I would really want to check is that there is a demand coming from the speakers that we could issue an e-certificate or a certificate of participation.
Surely we'll do that. Not a problem. Please, we'll find a way of doing that. It'll be an honor to kind of acknowledging their presence. We will do that.
Okay, sir. Continuing from the question, this is from Dr. Hina Zia. This is for you, Dr. Agrawal, and she asks that any roadmap for building up the supply chain of the non-conventional yet sustainable building materials which BMTPC is promoting.
Supply chain, if we talk about there are a lot of schemes being run by Government of India. Startup programs are being run. Recently, under Global Housing Technology Challenge, we have also started a continuous program where we are asking, researchers and the people who have developed the products to come to us, and we will attach them with the IITs if they require. If your product is at a ideation state, we will attach you with the IITs, and there you can, work with those IITs and do the incubation of the thing. And if you have a developed product or material, we can provide you, to make it market ready, accelerated support. So that is a new initiative taken by Government of India. Another initiative which I would like to tell everyone here. Now, in any ministry, you can go and do the internship. Okay, you can go to the Ayog and do the internship. You can come to our ministry and understand the nuances of various policy matters and things like that. So sustainable building materials, there is a huge market. We are talking about we have already started talking about local materials, local skills. So sustainable supply chain, the policy interventions by Government of India are in that direction, so that we bring overall sustainability into the construction sector. So there is supply system which.
Thank you, Dr. Shailesh Agarwal. I think yes, and this is a new thing which that day on the anniversary of the Smart City program, which even the Honorable Minister and the Secretary both announced that how they are encouraging internships. People can come and join their ministries, learn and add value as well as learn. So skill as well as scale both. Quickly, the next question, please.
Yeah, so this is to, it's not directed to any specific panelist. The question is that there are many startups that are working towards innovative and localized building materials and have been coming up with products at a very early stage and facing problems regarding support of validation and testing according to standards. So for these materials to, further have a take up in the society, is there any support available by any organization which can probably enhance the uptake of such materials? This is by Mr. Swapnil Soni.
Okay, let me answer this. I just now explained, Megha, you were also part of that Global Housing Technology Challenge, which we did in 19. Now in 21, again, we are going to do it. So there are two components in that challenge. One is to, take stock of existing technologies, and second one is to develop new technologies. And as I explained you, in that we have two components. One component is to incubate the ideas, okay? And there we will select certain technology, a basket of products and materials, and we will connect them with IITs, and support will be provided by Government of India, and the products and materials which are market ready to give them acceleration, we would be doing hand-holding with other organizations. So this is one thing. There is another scheme is Atal Innovation Fund, run by Niti Aayog. They are also the upcoming researchers or product developers, they can apply and take benefit of that. Another thing I keep repeating, under Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, you can get a lot of incentives in terms of loans and those kind of things if you want to set up your own plant. Another thing, we at BMTPC, any new material which comes and which is being certified by us or any other organizations, we try to make use of that material through demonstration housing projects, and the thing which we are doing in lighthouse projects. So these are the 3 interventions which at present we are doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Agarwal. Megha, we have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions more quickly, and if you could have a question for panelists, go ahead.
So this is for Saurabh sir. So this is a question, Dr. Hinazia. Can all the new federal agencies use this directory and understand the bottlenecks that come in implementation and suggest remedial measures?
Saurabh?
Can you repeat question?
Okay. So it's, the question is that can all the new federal agencies use the building materials directory and understand the bottlenecks that come in implementation and suggest remedial measures?
When we are developing this directory, we are calling number of people, these agencies as well, so that they have their viewpoint in this. But in future, we want that everybody, for example, CPWD or PWD or any other body, should use that material directory, so that it gives us what actually we want, that for the promotion of the energy efficient material.
Additionally, Saurabh, we are in talk with CPWD as well regarding inclusion of this energy efficient building material, additional building materials in the SORs, the SORs for their development.
Yes, that is very important.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Saurabh. And Megha, do we have any more questions?
Yes. So this is again.
This could be the last one then. Is this for Amit? I mean, I would want the builder's perspective, because ye sare policies, everything would be, all of that is good, but ultimately it's the markets for them to kind of take them on if you really want to see scales of operations. So if there is a question for Amit, otherwise whoever it is for, please go ahead.
Taken up by him as well, that this is by Mr. Gaurav Goyal, and he asks, how will boycott China affect the sustainable material market?
Sure. Okay.
It is very difficult right now, not impossible, but if you see the volume that plays off at China, you know there are number of frames, there are number of similar type of materials available right at the stock level in China. When somebody wants that material, it will be delivered immediately. That is how they are having those manufacturing facilities. So India to develop those facilities on a similar capacity, it will be a long time, but yes, we can do it as well.
Okay. Amit, I would want to know the developer's perspective as well on this.
Very difficult question to answer. So if you, I can give examples of what we do. We generally do not import many building material from China. We actually depend on entirely. Few years back, we used to do mainly the tiles, and after that we have stopped. So I think currently it will be a difficult task for immediate action. But I mean, for long run, if we have those kind of manufacturing capabilities, if we develop as a country, I think we'll be able to actually get rid of Chinese building material.
But as you said that you hardly have any imports. It's all locally available, and within that you are sourcing materials.
Yes. Because all our buildings, sir, all our buildings are certified and pre-certified green buildings. Anyway, we are not going, we cannot purchase material for beyond certain distances. We don't buy.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that
Good.
possibility is
Good.
completely ruled out for us. Completely.
Good. Thank you very much. And I think that brings us to the close of this webinar. I would really like to thank the esteemed panelists from heart that, wonderful engagements that we've had today. I'm sure that participants have also learned or got insights from the deliberations that we had this evening. We could have done this on better platforms, but unfortunately, these days availability of virtual platforms has become the biggest, I think, the market. If you look at the market, the biggest market is to kind of invest in virtual platforms, as we all are working from homes and interacting in a virtual. And while I say that, I'm also very happy to inform you all that at the GRIA Council, we are kind of launching in July. Very soon, we are coming up with a virtual exhibition, and a festival kind of thing, a virtual GRIA Fest, where we are encouraging people to showcase their products. Products, when we say products, not only products that they manufacture, but also products in the form of knowledge products to showcase various things, publications, the work that they are doing, all of that on a virtual. And we are attempting it for the first time. And this is going to be between 21st to 25th of July. And we are very happy to let you know that TPC has already come forward, and they are going to be showcasing a lot of their lighthouse projects and the work that they are doing. So sharing their knowledge on the platform. Likewise, we hope that GIZ and BE, and we are going to be inviting them also. And of course, Mahindra Life Spaces, who is a partner with us, to be showcasing their work as well. But that is, of course, on the future that we are going to be doing between 21st to 25th July. But in the meanwhile, I would want to thank every participant who kind of joined us today. I'm sure that it was a learning experience for us as well as from you all. For you all, we had certain disruptions, but we hope that we would be able to manage it better in the next set of webinars that we are going to roll out. There is an announcement that we will be making soon on the series that we are doing, and we are calling them the WebS Sustainability Unlock 2020. That's the series that we are doing, and we are going to be discussing a plethora of discussions are slated on the virtual platforms, of course, till the time we are good to be meeting in person. But thank you very much to all the organizations and to the wonderful perspectives brought out by the eminent panelists. Last but not the least, I would want to thank our own team within TERI, who kind of made this wonderful presentation, helped the virtual platforms, enabled the virtual platforms for these discussions to be taking place. And we look forward to having you again amongst us for these discussions. In the meanwhile, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep your spirits high. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.